Yeah, I think everybody made some really good points here. Like even what Mitchell just said, like you don't have to go to some, if you're in a Pentecostal church, you don't have to go up to the preacher for healing. Like, Jesus can heal you in a matter of time, and it may not happen immediately, but that doesn't mean that this preacher is gonna, go up there and immediately heal you because it was funny, like kind of going back to this, situation with this girl I was dating. Like a week later after that, we kind of decided, like after that service, I was thinking maybe I should just back away from the whole situation of being with this person. But anyway, a week later, she messaged me and said something like, "My knees healed," or something. And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, God's amazing." Like it just seemed like it was she was trying to, I guess, just trying to make her point that like going to this church, going to this Pentecostal church, kind of that's what did the job. And when I think of the Pentecostal church, was was about to say sorry if I offend you, but it's kind of sorry, not sorry at this point. But I think of the Pentecostal church as like reenactment, like a reenacting like what happened in Acts, like as far as or even and when Jesus was here the first time, as far as healing goes, and listen, as far as there's the Old Testament as far as prophesying. Like I feel like the Pentecostal churches basically doing a reenactment, and I feel like they're just looking at it just feels like an acting game. There's scripts and listen, they get nominated for the Oscar every year for some reason. So so yeah, so it just goes to show that I just feel like there's a lot of reenacting going on, a lot of entertainment, a lot of craziness going on. But I have a couple more things that I want to mention before we kind of close this out. So earlier today, I was actually listening to Disciples Direction podcast. They just had they both mentioned it earlier today that they had a topic on what is wrong with Christian music. And during the podcast, they brought up the group Jesus Culture. So Matt mentioned, according to this article, that this church has a Pentecostal theology. And that was something new to me, even though it kind of, now that I think about it, it kind of connects the dots with what this girl that I was dating that was Pentecostal kind of told me. She told me, she played a clip for me of the singer Kim Walker Smith that sings on Jesus Culture. And in one of these songs, she's singing, normally, the English and, language. And then out of nowhere, she starts singing in tongues. And she's like, "Do you not hear like how beautiful that sounds?" And I was thinking like I'm not even like now I'm not even focused on like worshiping Jesus at this point. Now we're having to focus on, wow, Kim Walker Smith's voice is so beautiful speaking in tongues. We at that point we took the whole focus off of what the song is supposed to be about in the first place, which was Jesus himself. It's now about Kim Walker Smith, which yes, she may be a talented singer. Yes, she may have a beautiful voice, but that's not why we should be listening to music. Like, I mean, yeah, I don't think you want to listen to somebody singing tone deaf, but like, I think you would want to, like the music that's behind the singing, goes back to Jesus. And one reason, like the kind of what got me introduced to Jesus culture is actually the church I go to. If I'm being honest, I actually don't go to a Pentecostal church. I go to a Baptist church. I won't say what church that is, but and they do sing like Jesus culture music. They even sing song like bands like y'all mentioned in your podcast, like Elevation. Even to this day, we sing Elevation music. We sing Hillsong. We sing Bethel. And Jesus culture. And now, like kind of after hearing like, and of course, what draws, like y'all mentioned, what kind of draws people to those bands is the music at first. You don't think about the theology that, or the preaching that happens within that church. You just think like, oh wow, I love this song. It sounds like, amazing. It sounds like some of it, like, it definitely is really good, but there are some songs that is very unbiblical, is very not good. It takes the whole focus off of Jesus, some songs, as doesn't reflect sound doctrine. So like so there, so I guess I just kind of think, like so now as I'm having kind of like more self-reflection in a way, of like why are not only just Baptist churches, but why is any denomination, if we don't believe in the, if we don't believe in this way that tongues is being used nowadays, why are we bringing Pentecostal theology into the church when like we don't even agree with the theology of tongues, which is like kind of the main thing that they go after when it comes to the major difference between Pentecostal and other denominations. But before I get to the last thing I want to mention, I want to give it back to anybody else to see if they have any input regarding that.
But the only thing that I have is you were talking about Kim Walker Smith speaking in tongues on in a song. I actually had a band. They were from overseas, so they were kind of like an independent Christian band way back. Hadn't even listened to them in I don't know how long, but actually called the Circumcised. But they actually had a bonus track, and it was just them speaking in tongues and laughing. So I don't know if they were from some of that where the laughter church, where they think laughing is like an extra good thing, which it can be a good exercise. Believe me, I get an ab workout anytime I laugh hard.
Right.
But I mean, I just remember them. It was like the most. I mean, there was no point to the bonus track because it was just them. Like, I mean, I didn't get nothing of it. I don't know what they said, so I mean, it's no good for me. But that's all I basically have. But I mean, yeah, I mean, outside of that, we do know obviously that those churches use their music because they're very good. The music's very good, obviously, and that's how they kind of draw you. Now, I mean, I'm not saying there's going to be anything wrong. I mean, obviously, if they're not teaching their bad theology in their music, but I would still be weary of them and go listen to Disciples Directions podcast on what is wrong with Christian music.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, definitely so. And I'm glad you kind of brought that into this because I mean I think that's something that everybody needs to think about. Some people think that it's just kind of like we said. I mean, it's just music. Or I think we played some clips from Justin Peters where he kind of said that. Where I mean, it's just music. What's the big deal? But really, behind the whole thing is you may not end up falling into that, but if you get that deep into it, you may end up starting to believe, well, I don't necessarily believe I have the gift of tongues, but I do believe that other people do, or this or that, or other people can prophesy and things of that nature. And you start really believing that those things are true, even though you may not practice them. And I think that's what I really believe that's what a lot of people do. I think that's how a lot of people believe, honestly. People that I've gone to church with, and just even hearing from the pulpit at times where people make those comments, preachers make those types of comments where you feel like they believe it, even though they wouldn't practice it. They believe that it's true, and it's because that this theology has been infiltrated in people's minds over and over again, including all of ours. So anyway,
Yeah, the only other thing, and I have this question for Joel, was like, how bad was her knees really hurting? I mean, because I mean, for it to have been that big of a deal, because didn't you say she kind of ran up there? I mean, so I mean, how big of a healing did she really need in the first place? Honestly, and that's where I think some of their things go wrong, is that sometimes it's those small things that they take credit for that may have no credit to take in the first place, at their church. I mean, obviously, I mean, I'm not saying God he's able to do whatever he wants. We know that.
Yes.
And he can do anything he wants. But I think at the same time, I mean, I had a cold a couple of weeks ago and now I don't. I mean, so I mean, I'm just saying, is that just through the season of time that it went away? I mean, was it God sovereignly, giving, getting rid of it for me, or what? But I mean, that's the only thing I would question. Because
I'll say this too. You look at the healings that happen in the scripture. They weren't somebody had a cold. I mean, now you think maybe some people might say, well, Peter's mother had a fever. She was nearly to death. You know what I'm saying? She was about to die. This was a horrible disease that she had. It doesn't really say. But it wasn't just colds or anything of that nature. These were people were blind, people were lame,
Yeah.
people were mute, things of that death, that were real serious issues.
Yeah, or a little joint soreness or something.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But it wasn't, oh, my knee's hurting, I'll pray, and then 2 or 3 days later, hey, my knee's feeling better. God must have healed it, probably just healed on its own. Now, I'm not saying that God doesn't heal. Of course he does. But yeah, I think they attribute, their prayer of healing or their gift of healing to things that are probably just natural, that come to healing or feeling better at times. That, like I said, all of those in the scripture were immediate, right then and there.
Yeah. Now, like I've heard other people say, kind of like when Peter cut the guy's ear off that it was mentioned earlier, and Jesus put it back on. Now let them do something like that. Okay, I may start looking a little differently, but you're not going to see anything like that, obviously. So,
No.
because none of these people on earth is Jesus, even though there's some of them about put themselves on the same stature. But we're not going to name any names at this point. But anyway, back to y'all. If y'all, unless Matt, no, okay, back to y'all.
All right, so yeah, you don't got